When Navy SEAL Commander Jake Torino saw my sister Brielle casually adjusting the scope on that Barrett .50 caliber rifle like she was checking her phone, he had no idea he was looking at the woman who held the world's most devastating long-range precision record, a 3,247-meter kill shot that had never been officially documented. Before we dive in, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow's episode is truly mind-blowing. Let's get started. I'm telling you this story because what happened next changed everything. I thought I knew about my own sister, and it definitely changed how Commander Torino viewed impossible missions. My name is Connor, and I work as a tactical communications specialist with Special Forces units. For 3 years, I've been the guy who coordinates intel between ground teams and command centers, making sure everyone stays connected when things go sideways. It's technical work that keeps me close enough to the action to understand the stakes, but far enough back to usually make it home in one piece. That morning in Afghanistan, I was running routine equipment checks when a dusty transport helicopter landed at our forward operating base. The rotor wash kicked up a cloud of desert sand, and through it stepped my sister Brielle, someone I hadn't seen in person for 18 months. She wore standard contractor gear, but something about the way she moved caught every soldier's attention. It wasn't arrogance or show-off confidence. It was the kind of calm certainty you only see in people who've been tested in ways most of us never will be. Commander Torino noticed her immediately. Jake's one of those SEALs who survived enough missions to develop serious instincts about people. He can spot trouble, competence, or danger from 100 yards away. When he saw Brielle walking toward our equipment tent with a rifle case slung over her shoulder like it weighed nothing, his entire posture changed. I watched him straighten up and study her with the kind of focus he usually reserved for mission briefings. Brielle had always been different from our family. Growing up on our grandfather's ranch in Montana, she was the one who spent hours studying ballistics tables while I played video games. She memorized wind patterns and elevation calculations like other kids memorized baseball statistics. Our grandfather Everett, who'd been a sniper in Korea, taught us both to shoot, but Brielle took it to another level entirely. She'd practice until her shoulder was bruised purple, adjusting for tiny changes in temperature and humidity that I couldn't even detect. After college, she disappeared into private security work. For 5 years, I got postcards from places I couldn't pronounce and brief phone calls where she asked about family, but never explained what she actually did for work. Mom worried constantly. Dad pretended he wasn't concerned but always perked up when she called. I just assumed she was doing corporate protection or embassy security, boring but well-paid contractor work. Standing there watching Commander Torino size up my sister, I realized how wrong I'd been. The way she carried herself wasn't just confidence, it was the body language of someone who'd faced life-and-death situations and walked away. When she set down her rifle case and looked around our base, taking in security positions and sight lines with professional interest, I understood that whatever she'd been doing for those 5 years, it wasn't boring. Commander Torino approached us, extending his hand to Brielle with the careful politeness he used with unknowns who might be dangerous. "Ma'am, I'm Commander Torino. I understand you're here as a marksmanship consultant." Brielle shook his hand firmly, meeting his eyes with steady calm. "That's right, Commander. I'm here to help with your long-range problem." That's when I knew this wasn't going to be a normal family reunion. My sister hadn't come to Afghanistan to visit her little brother. She'd come because someone with serious authority thought she could solve a problem that was stumping Navy SEALs. And judging by the way Commander Torino was studying her, that problem was bigger and more dangerous than anyone was telling me. Forward, operating base. Kandahar felt different that morning. The usual routine of equipment checks and intel briefings carried an undercurrent of tension that every soldier could sense. For 3 days, we'd been tracking a high-value target through intercepted communications and drone surveillance. The intelligence was solid, but the situation was impossible. Our target was Khalil Nazari, a bomb maker whose devices had killed 43 American soldiers over the past 8 months. Intelligence confirmed he was operating from a fortified compound in the mountains, but here's the problem. The compound sat 3,247 meters from the nearest position we could safely establish. That's over 2 miles through mountain terrain, with unpredictable wind patterns and elevation changes that would challenge any sniper system we had available. I'd been coordinating communications between our SEAL team and intelligence analysts for weeks, watching the frustration build as every tactical option hit the same wall. Airstrikes were impossible due to civilian populations in the surrounding area. Ground assault would require crossing open terrain where Nazari's forces could pick off our teams before they got within effective range. Our best military sniper, Sergeant Torres, could reliably hit targets at 1,800 meters under perfect conditions, but even he admitted that 3,247 meters was beyond anything in his training or experience. That's when Brielle arrived with her mysterious credentials and that rifle case that seemed to contain more than just equipment. After the initial introductions, she followed me to the communications tent where I was monitoring radio chatter. She set down her gear and pulled out a thermos of coffee, pouring 2 cups like we were sitting in our childhood kitchen instead of a military base in Afghanistan. "Hey, little brother, miss me? I brought coffee from that place in Denver you like." She handed me the cup, and for a moment the familiar smell transported me back to weekend mornings on Grandpa Everett's ranch. But the moment couldn't last. Commander Torino appeared in the tent entrance, studying Brielle with a careful attention he reserved for potential problems. "Ma'am, I've reviewed your credentials. They're heavily redacted. Before I allow you access to sensitive operational information, I need to understand exactly what qualifications you're bringing to this situation." Brielle sipped her coffee calmly. "Commander, I understand your concern. I can tell you that I've been working in precision shooting for specialized government contracts for the past 5 years. The details of that work remain classified, but I can demonstrate my capabilities if you'd like." After Torino left, I confronted my sister directly. "Brielle, what's really going on here? The military doesn't bring in civilian consultants for impossible shots unless something major is at stake. And they definitely don't fly people halfway around the world based on redacted paperwork." She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Part protective older sister, part professional operator. "Connor, there are some conversations we've never had about what I actually do for work. Maybe it's time we did." That's when I realized the sister I thought I knew had been living a completely different life than any of us understood. The mission briefing started at 800 hours in the command tent. Commander Torino stood before a detailed topographical map, pointing to the target compound nestled between 2 mountain ridges. Intelligence photos showed concrete walls, guard towers, and multiple escape routes that made ground assault a nightmare scenario. "Gentlemen, we have a 12-hour window. Khalil Nazari will be meeting with 3 other bomb makers tomorrow morning to coordinate attacks on American convoy routes. This represents our best opportunity to eliminate multiple high-value targets simultaneously." Sergeant Torres, our lead sniper, studied the terrain with professional frustration. "Sir, the effective range of our systems maxes out around 1,800 meters under ideal conditions. This target sits at 3,247 meters with mountain winds that shift every few minutes. Even with perfect conditions, the bullet drop and drift calculations are beyond standard military parameters." Commander Torino's jaw tightened. "What about close reconnaissance? Can we establish a forward position?" "Negative, sir. The approach. Terrain offers no cover for the final 2 kilometers. Any team attempting to get closer would be exposed to enemy fire for over an hour. We'd lose people before we got into effective range." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the impossible mathematics. 43 American soldiers had died from Nazari's bombs. Tomorrow, we could end that threat permanently, but only if someone could make a shot that defied everything we knew about long-range precision shooting. That's when Brielle spoke from the back of the tent. "Commander, I can make that shot." Every head turned toward her. The silence stretched until Torino found his voice. "Ma'am, with all due respect, that's over 2 miles through mountain wind. My best sniper just explained why it's impossible." "Different rifle, same physics," Brielle replied calmly. "I've made similar shots before." Sergeant Torres looked genuinely offended. "Ma'am, I've been shooting professionally for 12 years. The longest confirmed kill shot in military history is 2,475 meters. You're talking about adding another 800? meters through terrain that changes wind direction every 30 seconds. Brielle walked to the map and studied the elevation markers and wind direction indicators that intelligence had provided. She traced the shot path with her finger, calculating angles and atmospheric conditions with the kind of mental precision that comes from years of practice. Sergeant Torres, you're right about military records, but some shots never make it into official documentation. She turned to face Commander Torino directly. I need access to your Barrett .50 caliber rifle and 1 hour on your longest range shooting position. After that, you can decide whether you trust me with tomorrow's mission. The tension in the room was suffocating. Commander Torino faced an impossible choice. Authorize a civilian to attempt a shot his trained professionals considered beyond human capability, or abort a critical mission that could save dozens of American lives. I watched my sister's face. During this exchange, seeing a confidence that went beyond anything our childhood shooting lessons could explain. She wasn't making an offer, she was stating a fact. She could make that shot. The question was whether anyone would believe her. Commander Torino stared at Brielle for what felt like an eternity before nodding slowly. You get one demonstration shot. Maximum available range on our practice course is 2,100 meters. Hit that, target, and we'll discuss tomorrow's mission. Miss it, and this conversation ends. 30 minutes later, the entire SEAL team gathered at the base's long-range shooting position. Word had spread quickly through the camp. The mysterious civilian consultant was about to attempt a shot that would challenge their best marksman. Sergeant Torres carried the Barrett .50 caliber rifle, his skepticism evident in every step. Brielle accepted the weapon with practiced familiarity, immediately checking the bolt action and examining the scope mounting system. She ran her hands along the barrel housing and tested the bipod stability with movements that spoke of extensive experience with this exact rifle system. The scope's been zeroed at 1,000 meters, Sergeant Torres informed her. You'll need to calculate holdover for the additional distance. I'll need current atmospheric readings, Brielle replied, ignoring the implied challenge in his tone. Temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and wind speed measurements at 3 elevation points between here and the target. I watched from the communications position as Brielle pulled out a weatherproof notebook filled with ballistics tables, wind charts, and calculation formulas written in her precise handwriting. She spent 15 minutes taking measurements, consulting her notes, and performing mathematical calculations that looked more complex than anything I'd seen in military sniper training. The target was a standard silhouette positioned on a ridge, 100 meters away. Through binoculars, it appeared as a tiny speck against the rocky mountainside. Wind flags positioned at various intervals showed inconsistent patterns that would challenge any shooter. Brielle settled into firing position with methodical precision. She adjusted the bipod legs for exact height, positioned her body for optimal recoil management, and began the slow process of sight alignment. Her breathing became controlled and rhythmic, each exhale steady and measured. Winds gusting from northwest at 12 to 15 miles per hour, Sergeant Torres called out. Crosswind component will drift your shot approximately 40 inches at that distance. Brielle made scope adjustments without responding, her focus absolute. The entire SEAL team watched in silence, some openly skeptical, others genuinely curious about what would happen next. Commander Torino observed through high-powered spotting scopes, ready to call the shot's impact. The Barrett .50 caliber fired with a thunderous crack that echoed off the surrounding mountains. Through the spotting scope, Commander Torino tracked the bullet's trajectory for what seemed impossibly long before calling out the result that changed everything. Dead center hit. Direct impact, center mass. Sergeant Torres lowered his binoculars, slowly, his expression shifting from skepticism to professional respect mixed with genuine amazement. Ma'am, that was a perfect shot under challenging conditions. I've never seen civilian shooting at that level. Brielle stood up, ejected the spent cartridge, and handed the rifle back to Torres with matter-of-fact calm. Tomorrow's shot will be longer, but the principles are identical. Dawn broke over the Afghan mountains with crystal-clear visibility and minimal wind, perfect shooting conditions that might not return for weeks. Brielle had been awake since 0400 hours, taking atmospheric readings and calculating ballistic adjustments for the 3,247-meter shot that would either save American lives or confirm the impossible nature of the mission. The shooting position overlooked a vast valley with the target compound visible as a distant speck against the far mountainside. Through high-powered surveillance equipment, Commander Torino and his team monitored the compound's activity, while I coordinated communications between all units involved in the operation. Brielle settled behind the Barrett .50 caliber with the same methodical precision she'd shown during yesterday's demonstration, but the atmosphere was completely different now. This wasn't a test shot at a paper target. This was a live mission with deadly consequences if she missed. Khalil Nazari and 3 other bomb makers were confirmed inside the compound, planning attacks that would kill dozens more American soldiers. Wind speed consistent at 8 miles per hour from the northwest, I reported through the radio. Temperature, stable at 62 degrees, barometric pressure holding steady. Brielle made final scope adjustments based on calculations she'd refined throughout the night. The mathematics involved were staggering, accounting for bullet drop, wind drift, atmospheric density changes, and the Earth's rotation over the time it would take the bullet to travel nearly 2 miles. Target acquired, she announced calmly. I have visual confirmation through the compound window, multiple subjects in the designated room. Commander Torino monitored the surveillance feed from a drone positioned overhead. Confirmed. 4 targets present in the meeting room. You are cleared to engage. The moment stretched into absolute silence. Every person on that mountainside understood they were witnessing something unprecedented. Brielle's breathing became perfectly controlled, each exhale measured and deliberate. Her finger moved to the trigger with surgical precision. The Barrett fired with its characteristic thunderous report. The muzzle flash illuminated Brielle's face for a split second, showing complete focus without a trace of doubt or hesitation. 4 seconds we waited. 4 seconds for a bullet to travel 3,247 meters through changing atmospheric conditions, elevation drops, and mountain wind currents that could deflect the shot by several feet. Direct hit confirmed, Commander Torino announced through the radio. Target eliminated. I repeat, target down. The surveillance drone showed the devastating accuracy of the shot. 1 precise bullet had ended the threat that had killed 43 American soldiers and would have killed countless more. But what happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my sister. Commander Torino immediately began running Brielle's credentials through classified military databases, searching for answers about who could make such an impossible shot. Within minutes, his expression shifted from professional respect to genuine shock. Connor, I need to speak with you privately about your sister's background. What I'm seeing in these classified files changes everything about this mission and everything about who she really is. Commander Torino pulled me aside to a secure communications tent, his expression grave with the weight of classified information. Connor, your sister holds the unofficial world record for longest confirmed kill shot, 3,247 meters, the exact same distance as today's mission. She achieved it during a classified counterterrorism operation in Syria 18 months ago. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Every postcard from unpronounceable locations, every brief phone call where she deflected questions about her work, every family gathering where she seemed distant and preoccupied, it all suddenly made sense. My sister hadn't been working corporate security. She'd been making impossible shots to eliminate threats that endangered American lives. There's more, Commander Torino continued, scrolling through classified files on his secure tablet. She's credited with 17 confirmed eliminations over the past 5 years. High-value targets in Syria, Yemen, Somalia, and Afghanistan. Shots that military snipers declared impossible, taken under conditions that would challenge our best marksmen. When I found Brielle later that afternoon, she was sitting alone, cleaning the Barrett .50 caliber with methodical precision. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, but something in her expression had changed. The mission weight seemed to have lifted, replaced by a quiet satisfaction that came from using her skills to protect people who would never know her name. Why didn't you ever tell us, I asked, settling beside her on the equipment crate she was using as a workbench. Because some conversations change everything, she replied, not looking up from the rifle components. Mom and Dad worry enough about you being deployed. Imagine if they knew what I was really doing in all those places I sent postcards from. The truth was both simpler and more complex than I'd imagined. For 5 years, Brielle had been working with a classified government agency, taking contracts that involved eliminating threats through precision shooting at distances that defied conventional military capabilities. Every mission was designed to protect American forces and civilians, but none could ever appear in official records. Every shot I've ever taken was to bring people like you home safely, she continued, finally meeting my eyes. Today was the first time I could use my skills knowing that someone I cared about would understand what it meant. 6 months later, we found ourselves back in Montana, visiting Grandpa Everett's grave on a crisp autumn morning. Brielle had returned to her classified work, but our relationship had fundamentally changed. We understood each other now in ways that went beyond normal family bonds. Standing beside his headstone, I realized that Grandpa's shooting lessons had been about more than marksmanship. He'd taught us about precision, dedication, and the responsibility that comes with exceptional abilities. Brielle had taken those lessons further than any of us could have imagined. He'd be proud of both his marksmen, I said, placing a small American flag beside the headstone. He taught us that the most important shots are the ones nobody talks about, Brielle replied quietly. Some records are never meant to be broken. They're meant to protect the people who matter most.